Welcome to Layer of the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, another in a series of what I call milestone moments. These are moments in a band's career where everything comes together, or maybe it features the classic lineup of the band, or maybe it's just the album or albums that the band is most remembered for. So the band that I've picked for today is Helloween, and I've actually picked two albums from them because I always kind of think of these two albums together. 1987's Keeper of the Seven Keys, Part 1, and 1988's Keeper of the Seven Keys, Part 2. Apparently, these albums were intended to be released at the same time, a double album, but the record label wouldn't let them do that, so they got split into two different records. And you can sort of see how these two records would have fit together because they have very much the same feel, the same production on them. A lot of people would say that these albums are the birth of the European style of power metal, which for me is that sort of up-tempo type thing with the drums and the melodic guitars, the melodic vocals, the high-pitched vocals, maybe taking Iron Maiden and just dialing up the speed on it, but it's more in a sort of a clean, more upbeat style, if you will. So, like I said, these albums would be very influential, and you can really hear when you listen to these where so many power metal bands that came after these, where they got their influence from. Both these albums feature Michael Kiske. I'm going to probably say some of these names wrong. Michael Kiske on vocals. Now, this Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 1 was the second Helloween album. And on the first album, Kai Hansen sang and played guitar, but he decided he just wanted to play guitar. So on Keeper 1 and Keeper 2, you've got Michael Kiske on vocals, Kai Hansen on guitar, who would go on later to form Gamma Ray and sing and play guitar in that. Michael Waykath on guitar, although on the first album, he apparently had some sort of injury that he was barely able to participate, I guess, in playing on the first Keeper album. Marcus Grosskopf on bass, Ingo Schwitzenberg on drums. Both these albums were engineered and produced by Tommy Newton and Tommy Hansen, and they sound great. All the instruments are in check. The guitars sound great. They have kind of the guitars in Helloween, which is, I guess, would go on to be sort of a signature in power metal. A little bit more of a brighter, more smoother, brighter sound to the guitars than you might have found in maybe somebody like Black Sabbath, for instance. The bass, you can really hear the bass really well. His bass playing is great across all these records. He's a guy that I don't think gets enough credit and attention drawn to him, but there is some great bass playing on both these albums. The vocals sound great on it. They're classic power metal style vocals, just clean and high-pitched, way up there a lot of times, almost inhuman at times, but that will become almost a signature power metal sound where you would hear later on. It seems like currently there's a lot of power metal bands that have female vocalists in them, and for me it's sort of comes back to like this sound, those soaring high vocals. So all right, so let's get into the records. Like I said, both these records kind of feel like one record. You can really picture them having been a double album because sonically they're very much the same. Even in the format of the records, they're kind of the same. So Keeper 1's, I also note too, just the real power metal, this kind of swords and sorcery, fantasy, Lord of the Rings, Keeper of the Seven Keys, that whole thing. There's the band on the back there with sort of their mascot there. This would become a real thing for power metal, the sort of the fantasy style lyrics, and Helloween does it up really well on both these records. So Keeper One starts with Initiation, which is like a short little instrumental, and then it kicks into I'm Alive, which is basically classic power metal. It's that up tempo, driving but clean guitars. It's got a middle. It's just classic power metal. And then A Little Time is next, and again, it's super melodic. A little time, you hear it once and it sticks in your head. The middle section of this song is kind of cool. It drops down and it gets sort of a little trippy, and there's like a ticking clock sound, and all of a sudden that stops, and there's an alarm sound that goes off, and then it goes back into the song with that big chorus. It should be noted too that Helloween for me is they're a fun band. Even though these are sort of fantasy themed lyrics, it's done in a very fun, kind of lighthearted way. It doesn't sound like they're taking themselves too seriously, which at this point in time, 87, 88, when thrash metal was on the scene, Venom and bands, as much as I love those bands, and I'm a guy that definitely leans more towards the more sinister sounds, it's sort of refreshing, and it's fun that this stuff is uplifting and has a bit of sense of humor to it. They're not afraid to, it just seems like they're not afraid to have fun with it. Tale That Wasn't Right is a really fun, great melodic ballad. It really shows off Michael Kiskey's vocals. He starts off in like a lower range, and when the chorus kicks in my heart, he is just way up there and wailing, man. It's just great, epic, dramatic. I mean, that's what power metal's all about, right? Future World, again, here's sort of that fun vibe to Helloween. The chorus has sort of we all live, sing along type of chorus, and then it has this really fun middle section where down to dun, and there's all these like sound effects. It breaks down as down to down to ah, vocals back and forth, and these sounds that sound like a cash register drawer, and all these noises and everything going back and forth. So again, it's a fun, upbeat type song. Probably my favorite song on this one is Helloween, which is a 13-minute, almost progressive epic. It's got all these different sort of changing sections in it. It's got these great guitar trade-offs in the solo sections, and they sort of do this across both the albums, where these guys it reminds me a little bit like Merciful Fate, where there's a lot of two guitar play, where they'll play harmonies together, but then they'll split off, and there's a little burst from one guy, another burst from another guy. There's like a spoken word section in the middle where this thing, it sounds like a harpsichord or some kind of piano, and again, there's all these great changes. So like after the harpsichord section, on Helloween, it goes into like a low, like kind of chugging Doomier style thing, and then it kicks up again. And here they start off with the trading off in the guitars. It's just great, really cool. There's an awesome video for it too, and there's a video that's a edited, shortened version of it. But you can also find the video for the whole 13-minute one, which is just great. On Helloween, just fantastic, great chorus. Follow the Sign, this one ends with that, and it's just a short, kind of has like an instrumental type feeling underneath with some spoken word things, and like these little sounds that sound like birds or seagulls in the background. So Keeper 1 ends like that, and just great. Really, every song on that album I love. And Keeper 2 then starts with a song called Invitation. On the first one, it was Initiation. This time it's Invitation, and it kind of picks up where Keeper 1 left off. You hear a little bit of those bird sounds, and it's sort of this orchestrated thing, like with sounds like keyboards, and it has this regal, classical fanfare type intro to it. I would say Keeper 2, although they're both sonically pretty much identical, Keeper 2 for me has a little bit more orchestration and keyboard stuff in it. There's some of that on the first one, but it seems like a little more prevalent on the second one. Then Eagle Fly Free, classic power metal, the soaring chorus, Eagle Fly Free. Just again, it's set the template almost for what power metal would be. You have these driving verses, and then it just sort of explodes into these real epic, dramatic choruses. It has this really cool spot where it stops, and there's like it's just the bass doing like these tapping, really quick, like tapping bass solo thing, like a little bass solo in the middle of the song, which is really cool. And I should mention that Marcus Grosskopf, he's just great across all these records. You can really hear his bass, and he'll double the riff, but then he'll do a lot of these like cool kind of walking lines and fills and stuff like this. And this is a perfect example of it. He's got this spot where everybody drops out, and he does this really awesome bass solo. And he has kind of a unique sound too. It's a real kind of mid-rangey, punchy sound that really jumps out on the record. You'll Always Walk Alone is a slower kind of mid-tempo intro, and then it settles into like a fast driving thing. Rise and Fall, this is another one where I was saying that it seems like Helloween, they don't take themselves too seriously. They like to have fun. This has a lot of fun, kind of silly lyrics in it. The dragon doesn't know when he's blowing fire, it hurts people, and the knight hits him with his lance. And it's just sort of just about you rise and you fall. You don't really, one day you're on top, the next day you drop. And the song ends with all these funny sound effects. There's like a sheep and a horse, and then you hear what I'm pretty sure is a slide whistle. You hear him go, rise, whoop, fall, boo. You know, again, it's fun. It's good fun. Next one is another one that has kind of fun lyrics to it. Dr. Steen. It's melodic fun. It's got some chugging, kind of again this Iron Maiden, hyped up Iron Maiden, if you will, a little bit of a lighter but faster Iron Maiden. And I wrote down some of the lyrics here. Dr. Steen grows funny creatures, lets them run into the night. They become great rock musicians. I mean, you sort of have to laugh, and the way Michael Kiske delivers these lines is it just adds to it, the funness of it. March of Time starts off with this nice kind of piano orchestrated kind of classical style intro, and again, like I said, on Keeper 2 there's a little bit more of this sort of orchestrated sound, and then there's this great like guitar shredding type stuff in here. And the guitars are on both these records are great, and they could really go from the Iron Maiden style melodic guitar harmonies to just flat out shredding, neoclassical style shredding, which is really just great. It's a real nice mixture. It's not too much shredding. It mixes really nice and works really well in the songs because it gives different textures to the songs with the different sections. Because in most of these songs, there's a lot of changes and there's a lot of soloing in a lot of these songs and trade-offs and stuff, that short little guitar solos in between sections of the songs. I Want Out is probably their most popular song, if you will, at least here in the States. I remember that video got quite a bit of airplay, and it's got a real Iron Maiden style guitar harmonies in the intro. It's got, again, another big chorus, another really catchy I Want Out. So it's just a great quick up tempo, another up tempo classic power metal. And then the album ends with the epic for this album. I'd say the epic on the first one is Helloween, and on this one it's the song Keeper of the Seven Keys. And this song is just great because it builds, like it starts off kind of slow and quieter and lower, and it builds up and it goes through all these different tempo changes until there's like this big dramatic dun dun dun, you're the keeper of the set. It builds beautifully into the chorus where it's big, dramatic, and just jumps out at you. It's just great. And then there's a spot that drops down into this trippy, like almost Pink Floyd-like section where the guitar, one of the guitars is clean and they're playing like these. It sounds like Pink Floyd, like a David Gilmour type thing. And then it busts into a fast, like classical style, neoclassical style guitar shredding sound. And then it drops down again later on, and more like a spoken word type thing. The earthquake squirting fire. There's all this sort of dramatic imagery through it, and then it builds again into the big chorus, and then it ends with like this sort of classical guitar style outro. So just great, man. Just a really well built song that it starts from the beginning and it just sort of takes you on this ride, which is really cool. And every time that chorus comes up, you hear it coming, and you're just like, don't, you're just waiting for it, and then it just sort of explodes out. And whenever they play that live, of course, everybody is just singing along with it. You can't help it. Every time I listen to it and I hear it come along, I want to sing along to it. So it's just great. So there you go. Milestone moment for Helloween. Their 2 albums, Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 1 and Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2, the beginning of European power metal, laying down the template, the groundwork for everything power metal would be. The album covers the fantasy, the up-tempo guitars, the neoclassical stuff, the high dramatic vocals. So just great stuff. Let me know in the comments what you think of these 2 albums. After this, unfortunately, I never really got into anything that Helloween did after this. Like when they were doing like Pink Bubbles Go Ape, and again, I know they always had this sort of fun element to their sound, but I don't know, they just lost me after this. So for me, these are the 2 definitive Helloween albums, and they're just great metal albums in general. So let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you hit subscribe and like, and until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.